What up, everybody? How's it going? YouTube live. Let me double check if we are live streaming or not. So, double checking is always good. You can never be too safe. And sometimes this live streaming kind of gets messed up sometimes. So, I want to make sure that we are all right. So, right now it's Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. It's been a full morning for me. I've got a couple of interviews later on as well. I just had my interview, first one this morning. But I want to squeeze in this latest news that's been taking over the Twitter sphere and pretty wild, crazy stuff here. Let me X this out. Okay. So, as you know, this guy, his name is Ray Fisher, and we've been talking about him for the past year. Um, because I think it was late or middle summer of 2020 when he revealed. Well, he revealed it now. I'm sorry. Back then, he made accusations against Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers about certain misconducts on the set of the 2017 movie Justice League. Um, Sorry, I just had breakfast. So now Ray Fisher finally revealed exactly what happened there. Because all this time, he's been tweeting, he's been accusing, uh, and there was investigation as well going on, conducted by WB or Warner Media. But we never got to know until now. We never got to know what exactly happened. What did Joss Whedon say to this man? What did Joss Whedon do to Ray Fisher and Jason Momoa as well? Because Jason Momoa, as you remember, backed Ray Fisher's accusation. Um, Jason's like, hey, my man's telling the truth. But what is that truth? they 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 kept it under wraps all this time, and I'm thinking like maybe Ray Fisher signed an NDA maybe as part of this settlement or something. I don't know. I don't know what went on behind the scenes. So it took a while, for now that after Zack Snyder's Justice League already came out on HBO Max, and I guess Ray Fisher now finds it comfortable to dish it out, basically. You know what? I'm gonna just tell all right now. So this article is today from the Hollywood Reporter. It's very lengthy. I tried reading it like once, and then My plan was to talk to you guys about it after I read it, but it was so long, man. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna go live stream right now, and then read it and share with you my thoughts on it as I'm reading it. Um, but yeah, this is some meaty stuff, man. Substantive. Um, the first, I want to say, 8 paragraphs are just giving you context in case you, I don't know, in case you lived under a rock, this past year and you don't know what happened with Ray Fisher and the WB thing. So the first 8 paragraphs is just telling you or giving you the context, just to keep you up to speed, if you will. Um, but let me start with the paragraph when he finally said what Joss Whedon did and what Jeff Johns did. Jeff Johns, is a complicated man. He's a guy that I grew up a DC fan, and I'm a late bloomer when it comes to Marvel, but as a DC fan, any DC fans, we would be appreciative of Jeff Johns generally because he has been handling a lot of DC properties over the years, and of course, he created Stargirl, and Stargirl was a great series as well. Um, so very complex here. I mean, I'm feeling conflicted, but but you got to call a spade a spade. If somebody did something wrong, then that somebody did something wrong. Um, So let's see. Let's start with the paragraph. Um, so he was talking a paragraph about, okay. So Zack Snyder had to leave Justice League because, unfortunately, the tragedy with his daughter, of course, as you remember, and so Joss Whedon was brought in by the studios to help finish the film in time for the 2017 release. Okay, let's start with this paragraph. The Justice League, Ray Fisher had signed up for was the Justice League that Ray Fisher signed up for was a far cry from the film that Whedon ended up finishing. Snyder had Fisher talk at length with screenwriter Chris Terrio before there was even a script. So obviously Zack Snyder was planning something substantive with this character and with Ray Fisher. Um, and Terrio and he and Snyder took the portrayal of the first black superhero in DC film universe very seriously. It says here, very seriously. With a white writer and a white writer and white director, we both thought having the perspective of an actor of color was really important, and Ray is really good with the story and the character, so he became partner in creating Victor. So now Whedon comes in. When new filming proceeded under Whedon, says Fisher, he came to feel that he had to explain some of the most basic points of what would be offensive to the black community. Interesting. After Fisher's reps were told that Whedon planned to make major revision to the film, he flew from New Jersey to meet with the filmmaker Joss Whedon in LA. When the two met at the bar, Fisher says Whedon was tiptoeing around the fact that everything was changing. As he left the meeting, Fisher was handed the revised script, which he read twice on the plane back. Gone was Cyborg's traumatic backstory. Gone was his relationship with his mother. Gone the scenes, with her son were eliminated. As was gone also was the accident that killed his mother and led to his transformation. The material, as you know, was later restored in the Snyder Cut version that recently streams on HBO Max. Ray Fisher says it represents that his parents are two genius-level black people. We don't see that every day. Whedon sent out an email asking questions, comments, or fulsome praise, but Fisher says it became clear all he was looking for was the fulsome praise. Trying to strike a jocular tone, Fisher responded that he mourned the loss of the cyborg material but was moving on. He said he had notes. Ray Fisher said he had notes to avoid issues in terms of representations of the character. But in a call with Whedon, Fisher says he had barely started to talk with the filmmaker when Whedon cut him off. Whedon says, "It feels like I'm taking notes right now, and I don't like taking notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr." Other sources on the project says Whedon was similarly dismissive of Gal Gadot, and Jason Momoa, when they question new lines. Okay, let's pause there. That's not cool. I've heard stories of directors who are megalomaniac, and they have egos so big they can't fit through the door. Sometimes it comes with the territory because they are, the boss. They are in charge of the whole thing. The whole set. But for Joss Whedon to treat his stars like this, I mean, like, dang, and I think I've mentioned to you guys this. Yes, I mentioned to you guys this before in my review of Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's not cool that Joss Whedon came in and then just changed, the thing to his own liking. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dude, it's not your project to begin with. It's if it's your project to begin with, you can do it as you please with it. But you're just stepping in to help out finish it. This is Zack Snyder's project. You should kind of honor his vision at least. So obviously from these paragraphs, it's obvious that one of the things that Joss Whedon did, one of the first things that he did when he stepped in was cut out Cyborg, like a big chunk of Cyborg. Um, and that's not cool. Say what you want about the 4 hours Zack Snyder's Justice League. Maybe it's too long, right? Maybe 4 hours is too long, but we got to see Cyborg, the Cyborg, really really see him, as opposed to the 2017 film when it's like it's just like it's not as bad as Jared Leto's Joker in Suicide Squad, but it's close, almost there. You know how they cut down Jared Leto to like very minute in Suicide Squad. Cyborg felt like that in 2017 Justice League movie. I was like, what is going on? It's all missing. This character is so paper thin. He's not supposed to be paper thin. He's Cyborg, man. He's part of the Justice League. Um, and this paragraph, when Joss Whedon says, "It feels like I'm taking notes right now. I don't like taking notes from anybody, not even Robert Downey Jr." Damn. Man, that is ego to the max, yo. That is ego in the most unlikable form. Holy crap. I mean, dismissive of Gal Gadot and Momoa too. Dude, I would not, I would never be dismissive of Gal Gadot. Okay, I worship that woman. Not just gorgeous as hell, but she's freaking Wonder Woman, and you're gonna be dismissive of Gal Gadot? That's not cool. Um, oh, Having Visions is here. Yes, that's wild. Indeed, man, that is wild. Wow, indeed. So okay, so here's remember I told you about Jeff Johns, complicated character. As a fan of DC, I thanked him for creating Stargirl, which I love, and he had overseen a lot of DC projects over the years. Um, but like I said, call a spade a spade. If somebody did something wrong, then that somebody did something wrong. And so Ray Fisher turned to Jeff Johns, one of the bosses at DC and WB, who he says had presented himself as kind of a mediator. But Fisher says his ultimate response was, "Hey, we can't make Josh mad." Publicist Howard Brackman, who represents Johns, denies that, but says Johns recalls suggesting that any creative pitches should happen when Joss Whedon was not preoccupied, so he would not be most receptive. Once Whedon got involved, Fisher says that Johns told him that it was problematic that Cyborg smiled only twice in the movie. Fisher says he later learned from a witness who participated in the investigation that Johns and other executives, including the DC Films co-chairman John Berg and Warner's studio chief Toby Emmerich, had discussions in which they said they could not have an angry black man at the center of the film. John's rep responds that once the chairman of the studio mandated a brighter tone for the film, all further discussions centered on adding joy and hopefulness to all six superheroes. There are always conversations about avoiding any stereotype of race, gender, and sexuality. Jeff Johns told Fisher he should play the character less like Frankenstein and more like the kind-hearted Quasimodo. Fisher says that in order to demonstrate the look he wanted, Johns dipped his shoulder in what struck Fisher as a servile posture. To Ray Fisher, there was a big difference between portraying a character who was born with a disability versus one who had been transformed by trauma, which is Cyborg. And he felt Cyborg was kind of a modern day Frankenstein. I did not have any intention of playing him as a jovial, cathedral cleaning individual. Hey, funny description, but he's right. I mean, look at this paragraph when he says the executives had discussions adding joy and hopefulness to all six superheroes, a brighter tone for the film. So, guys, that is so messed up. That is so. Do you understand how messed up that is? Like, Zack Snyder had to step down because of a tragedy in the family, right? Understandable. Um, so they brought in Whedon. So the executives are also in cahoot. They're also complicit in in the fact that the 2017 Justice League movie was crap. It was not just Joss Whedon. They stepped in, they brought Joss Whedon in, and they're like, you know what? Let's just mess with Zack Snyder's film. I know. He started it all, but forget him. He's grieving right now. Let's just make our own Justice League. Excellent. Let's do this. Let's add some rainbow and joy and sunshine and unicorn and happy. Look, it's like there's nothing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, like a joyous superhero movie, but that's not what Zack Snyder intended, in the first place, initially. So, wow, this revelation is just stunning. They wanted Ray Fisher's cyborg to be more like Quasimodo, freaking Hunchback of Notre Dame. But Ray Fisher's like, no, Victor wasn't born disabled. He was traumatized by the death of his mother and stuff like that. He was more of a modern day Frankenstein, and he's right. I mean, that's a pretty good approach, acting wise. So, Jeff Johns' representative responds. So, Jeff gave a note using a fictional character as an example of a sympathetic man who is unhappy and has an inclination to hide from the world, but one whom the audience roots for because he has a courageous heart. Oh man, yeah, that's Quasimodo, man. But that's not what Ray Fisher had in mind. Remember, in the earlier paragraphs I mentioned to you, Ray Fisher, Zack Snyder, and Chris Terrio had discussions thoroughly about how they're gonna approach Cyborg and be respectful to Cyborg's history and Cyborg being a black man. So all of that was taken into consideration, but then the executives and Joss Whedon's, just took it out of the equation. I was like, wow, that's so brazen. Um, Ray Fisher told Jeff Johns it might be one thing for a non-black person to write a character for a comic, but it was another thing for a black actor to portray that character on screen. It was like, Ray Fisher says, it was like he was assuming how black people would respond rather than taking the advice from the only black person, as far as I know, with any kind of creative impact on the project. Um, Ray Fisher said Jeff Johns did not yield. The last conversation he had with anything with Jeff Johns and I knew I was on my own. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so there's a quote from Justice League producer Chuck Roven. So let me read to you the quote. I fully empathize with Ray that his character arc was significantly altered and shortened. I've also collaborated with Jeff over many years and found him to be a gracious and humble man. Jeff took it upon himself to put Cyborg in the Justice League comics in the first place and has written more about the character than any other individual except for the creator. He loves the character Cyborg. Um, I guess this is one of those things where you say two things can be true. You know, um, my experience about a person may be different from your experience about that same person. So to Chuck Roven, Jeff Johns is awesome, and all these great things, um, and that could be true. I'm not taking away that I'm not taking that away from his experience of Jeff Johns, but it can also be true that Jeff Johns, what Ray Fisher said Jeff Johns did was true. I mean, it could also be true. Two things can be true. So I don't see what Chuck Roven says here as a solid defense, if you will, of Jeff Johns. So this paragraph is about the business aspect of it. Uh, okay, Rio. Ray Fisher says he doesn't see the word in itself as an issue. Wait, word. Okay, here it is. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself there. Ray Fisher says that Jeff Johns had approached Zack Snyder about including the line, "Booyah." The line is "Booyah," but the director did not want any catchphrases. He managed the situation by putting the word on some signs in his version of the film as an Easter egg, but John's rep says the entire studio believed the "Booyah" line was a fun moment of synergy. Um, Fisher says he doesn't see the word itself as an issue, "Booyah," the word, but he thought it played differently in a live action film than the animated series, and he thought of black characters in pop culture with defining phrases. Gary Coleman's "What you talking about, Willis?" Jimmy Walker's "Dynamite." As no one else in the film had a catchphrase, he says it seemed weird to have the only black character say that. Um, the catchphrase that in Justice League movie that cracked me up was by Jason Momoa. It's not necessarily a catchphrase, but when Cyborg kind of rescued him and Aquaman says to Cyborg, "My man," but back to the "Booyah" thing. I can understand why Ray Fisher did not want to say that catchphrase. It does the optics does look bad when you know, apparently the only black man in the picture or in the movie has to say the catchphrase when nobody else has to say it. You know, the optics doesn't look good. Definitely, it kind of cheapens um, Cyborg. Obviously Ray Fisher and Zack Snyder had a conversation, and they really want to do Cyborg seriously. None of this jovial booyah stuff. Um, but man, they really wanted Ray Fisher to go that direction after Snyder gone. I was like, oh, come on, do it our way, Ray Fisher. With reshoots underway, Fisher says Joss Whedon raised the issue again. Jeff tells me Cyborg has a catchphrase, he told him. Fisher says he expressed his objections and it seemed the matter was dropped until Burke, the co-chairman of DC Films and producer on the project, took him to dinner. Um, so this is what Ray Fisher said. Burke said to him, "This is one of the most expensive movies Warner's has ever made. What if the CEO of AT&T has a son or daughter, and that son or daughter wants Cyborg to say booyah in the movie, and we don't have a take for that? I could lose my job." Fisher responded that he knew if he filmed the line, it would end up in the movie, and he expressed skepticism that the film's fate rested on Cyborg saying booyah. Wow, they're really making a big deal out of this booyah. I mean, like, like the, the studio the executives and Whedon and Jeff Johns, they just don't want to drop this. I mean, you gotta have booyah. I mean, come to think of it, when you watch the 2012 movie The Avengers, directed by Joss Whedon, it did have a lot of catchphrases on that in that movie, including like when Captain America says to Hulk, "Hulk, smash." Remember that? So I obviously catchphrases is a big deal to Joss Whedon, but man, this was like booyah. That's the hill that you're gonna die on. You want to die on the hill of booyah. You gotta have a booyah in him. I don't know, man. I think, I think this is one catchphrase that you can let go. All right. Ay ay ay. But he shot the take. As he arrived on the set, he says, Whedon stretched out his arms and said a line from Hamlet in a mocking tone. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounce it to you. Fisher replied, Just don't. I'm not in the mood. As he left the set after saying just that one phrase for the cameras, he says, Whedon called out, Nice work, Ray. Um, Now, I forgot the 2017 movie Justice League. I've only watched it once in theaters when it came out, and I never watched it again. Not even for my preparation for Zack Snyder's Justice League. I just didn't want to watch it. So, if you guys got to rewatch the 2017 Joss Whedon Justice League recently, tell me. You can tell me. I mean, did the Booyah appear in the film? Did the Booyah make it into the film? Let me know. Um, Even before the line was shot, Fisher's agent had called Warner Film Studio Chief Emmerich to raise concerns about what was happening on the set. After Fisher arrived in Los Angeles for additional photography in summer 2017, Jeff Johns asked him to come to DC offices in Burbank. When they met in a conference room, Ray Fisher said he had apologized to Whedon for his part in the conflict, which he had done in the hope of preventing a real rupture with the DC team. Jeff Johns responded that having agents call Emmerich was just not cool. Fisher recalls he said, I consider us to be friends, which he knew we were not, and I just don't want you to make a bad name for yourself in the business. Fisher took that as a threat. Wow. That does sound like a threat. When Jeff Johns says, and I just don't want you to make a bad name for yourself in the business. That's you got to understand, guys. You got to read between the lines. That's basically saying, hey, if you want to, continue to have a job in this town, one word get out. If I just say that, oh, Ray Fisher is an actor that's hard to work with, he'll never be hired again. I mean, like that's the tactic that Harvey Weinstein did to prevent girls like Mira Sorvino and Ashley Judd from getting a job at Lord of the Rings movie. Remember that? Peter Jackson apologized to Ashley. He's like, hey, Harvey Weinstein said that you were hard to work with. So I was like, that's why I didn't cast you, but I was considering to cast you. So read between the lines. That's what it says here. What Jeff Johns is implying here. You don't want to make a bad name for yourself in this business. And Ray Fisher at the time, and still is, of course, he only has a few titles under his belt, a few films. Ray Fisher is pretty fresh in this business. He's not, he hasn't been around as long as Gal Gadot or Jason Momoa or Ben Affleck. So, of course, he's going to take that as a threat. Jeff Johns rep says he never made a threat, but told Fisher that creative differences were not normally taken to the head of a film film by an actor's agent. Oh, here it is. Here's another juicy part. Ready? Ray Fisher was not the only Justice League star who was unhappy. Sources say Whedon clashed with all of the stars of the film, including Jeremy Irons. Oscar winner Jeremy Irons. Why are you messing with one of the all-time greats? Don't be infuriating the legend. This is this is the voice of Scar, damn it. This is the villain in Die Hard 3. Why are you pissing him off? And one Justice League star ended up taking her complaints not only to the head of the film studio, but also to the chairman of Warner Brothers. A knowledgeable source says that Gal Gadot had multiple concerns with the revised version of the film, including issues about her character being more aggressive than her character in Wonder Woman. She wanted to make the character flow from one movie to the next. Bingo! Because it's a whole DC extended universe, right? So you don't want the character to suddenly be different in one movie compared to the other installments. That would be just like so out of place. So it's totally understandable. It makes sense that she wanted she wanted Wonder Woman to be, in synchronicity, if you will, from one installment to the next. It's understandable. The biggest clash, sources say, came when Whedon pushed Gal Gadot to record lines she didn't like. threatened to harm Gal Gadot's career. Wow! Holy crap! Joss Whedon even tried to pull that with Gal Gadot and disparage Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins. Wow! While Fisher declines to discuss any of what transpired with Gal Gadot, a witness on the production who later spoke to investigators says that after one clash, Joss was bragging that he has had it out with Gal Gadot. He told her he's the writer and she's gonna shut up and say the lines, and he can make her look incredibly stupid in this movie. Dude, that's a lot to unpack. Where do I even begin? Like, wow, you dare do that to Gal Gadot, man? The woman that I worship. Come on. What? Joss is a jerk, man. I don't want to say curse words because I might get demonetized by YouTube, but he's a jerk. Holy crap. And the thing is, I think I tweeted this out not too long ago because after Charisma Carpenter came out about Joss Whedon, after Sarah Michelle Gellar backed Charisma, I tweeted out like, how come none of the Avengers cast members spoke out, about Joss Whedon? And I think one of the responses on my tweet, somebody responded to it, and he said along the lines of, well, because Scarlett Johansson and all those guys, they're big names, so Joss Whedon probably would not want to, piss them off because then he might get fired by Kevin Feige because Kevin would take the sides of Scarlett Johansson and all the other actors. I mean, Joss Whedon made two Avengers movies with the cast. With the cast of the Avengers, at least to my knowledge, to this day, are still silent. They're not, tweeting out hashtag I stand with Ray Fisher at all. But that argument, that response to my tweet, it has holes in them. When you read this paragraph, I mean, Gal Gadot is a big star. It's not to say Scarlett Johansson is a bigger star than Gal Gadot, vice versa, but she's a big star. So the argument is like, oh, Joss Whedon doesn't want to piss off Scarlett Johansson on the set of the Avengers, but he wants to piss off Gal Gadot. I mean, like, that doesn't make sense. But yeah, the Avengers cast are still silent about it. But this is insane. Holy crap. So he bragged that, you know what? I'm the writer. She's going to shut up, say the lines, and I can make her incredibly look stupid in the movie. Wow. I've heard stories that Joss Whedon is a jerk, but this is just like next level, like this is like stratosphere up in the outer space freaking jerk, It's like, wow, unbelievable. I mean, dude, leave Gal Gadot alone. A knowledgeable source says that Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins went to battle, culminating in a meeting with then Warner's chairman Kevin Tsujihara. Asked for comment, Gal Gadot says in a statement, I had my issues with Whedon, and Warner Brothers handled it in a timely manner. So it seems that Gal Gadot says, you know what, I don't want to be dragged into the mud anymore. I'm gonna, support Ray Fisher, but this is all the statement that I'm gonna release, and that's it to it, and that's fine. That's all to it. That's fine. That's totally fine. Heaven Vision said probably the culture over there. Probably yeah. Probably the culture indeed. 3 months after Justice League hit theaters, Whedon exited Batgirl Project. Okay. So what else here? So this is just context. More context. Okay. By late June 2020, Fisher went public with his dissatisfaction and what he viewed as Warner's inaction. For their part, Warner sources contend that Fisher was being manipulated by Snyder, who hope to reclaim control of the DC film universe. Dude, now that's big, right? Now, you've heard recently how the fans wanted WB to continue Zack Snyder's DC extended universe after the success of the Zack Snyder's Justice League cut on HBO Max. There was like trending Twitter. There was even like a hashtag make Deathstroke movie, right, with Joe Manganiello, and so the fans really loved Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, that they want that universe to continue, and I want it too as well. I think it's fantastic. I mean, Zack Snyder's Justice League was just incredible in my opinion. Um, but there's also reports that WB is not going in that direction anymore. Unfortunately, WB wanted to move on from Zack Snyder. And so this paragraph sort of, you know, inadvertently sort of confirms that, um, by saying that Ray Fisher, Warner says, hey, Ray Fisher is under Snyder's manipulation, under the assumption that Snyder's gonna take back control of DC Film Universe, but he's not. Basically, Warner says like he's not. He's not gonna get. He's not gonna reclaim control of DC Universe. So that's sad. That's sad in my book, because if you've seen Zack Snyder's Justice League movie, you would be able to tell that Zack Snyder left a lot of possibilities for potential spin-offs, potential sequels. It can go to any direction, right? With Martian Manhunter, with Deathstroke, with the whole Joker showing up. It can go any direction. But so it's sad. So it's sad that they don't want Zack Snyder to continue that. Um, Fisher says that the assertion that a black man would not have his own agency is just as racist as the conversations Warner's leadership was having about the Justice League reshoots. I've been underestimated at every turn during this process, and that is what has led us to this point. Had they taken me as seriously as they should have from the beginning, they would not have made as many foolish mistakes as they did in the process. Snyder denies any role in influencing Fisher. This is all Fisher's grievances. Um, Tweeting footage of himself praising Whedon Comic Con, Fisher wrote, I'd like to take a moment to forcefully retract every bit of this statement. Uh, he was enabled in many ways by Jeff Johns and John Burke. Oh, that's the tweet that he tweeted out, accusing John Whedon. So, yeah, it's a very, very long article. A lot of it is just context, you guys. Just giving you the context, what happened, the investigation, and the result of that investigation, or all that stuff. And also you've heard that Warner Media wanted to, not discuss this anymore. They just like, we don't want this headache anymore. So that's where we are, and you can read it yourself at the Hollywood Reporter. But yeah, those revelations of what Joss Whedon and WB did, unbelievable. It's so not cool, what they did to this actor, Ray Fisher, who had a clear vision of his character, a clear and full understanding of his character, Cyborg. Let's see, let's bring this up. It's sad that one of the outcomes of this, as you know, Ray Fisher was supposed to be, or was initially set to show up in the Flash solo movie starring Ezra Miller, but unfortunately they cut him out, and he's not gonna be Cyborg anymore, and that's sad. It's sad that it has come to this, that this is the result of all this. But But at the same time, I'm glad that actors like Ray Fisher find the courage to speak out, to be whistleblower, if you will, because these kind of attitudes that Joss Whedon exudes, and also the executives, it should not be acceptable. And unfortunately, I think it's more common than you think. Um, Maybe we can, like having Vision says, maybe it's just the culture over there in the studio. But who's to say that that culture is not shared also in other studios? Maybe other executives and other directors also have the similar mindset or similar approach to their actors. And so, it's good that it's being aired out right now. They being exposed so that maybe other execs or other director would read this article and maybe change their ways. I know. I sound naive. I sound like a freaking gullible person, but hey, one can hope, right? One can hope that something positive could come out of this article, of this revelations by Ray Fisher. Um, so before I go, because I do have uh, a lot of editing that I have to do today. Let me share with you some of the responses on Twitter. Um, some of the people, hashtag I stand with Ray Fisher is trending today. I think it's going to be trending all day. Um, I think people are just retweeting the article. They're not necessarily commenting it. But yeah, see, like this, I stand with Ray Fisher, and then the photo, and that's it. Okay, Yazi says, let's see here. I think Yazi says something. WB is really hurting my love for movies in so many ways lately. It used to be my favorite studio because I felt filmmakers enjoyed more freedom there. Something needs to be done. WB cannot continue to be a toxic work environment for those with less power. Agreed. And you remember, guys, WB is the same studio that freaking fired Johnny Depp from Fantastic Beasts 3. I'm like, what the heck? Uh, Even the whole Amber Fisher Johnny Depp thing, it was not even like settled with hard evidence. There's no, but they just like, hey, we think Johnny Depp is toxic and we're gonna kick him out. I was like, what? You guys are the ones that are toxic. Ay, ay, ay. Um, F Warner Brothers. Yeah, most of them are just tweet retweets. So you can look it up yourself on the Twitter sphere, but it's trending today. So I'll end on this. And this is gonna be my final thought. I promise. We thank Zack Snyder. Thank you, Zack Snyder, for making your Justice League cut that gave Ray Fisher's Cyborg his due. That gave Ray Fisher's Cyborg justice. So it's sad that we're not gonna have Ray Fisher play Cyborg moving forward, but just like Casablanca will always have Paris. Remember that movie? We'll always have Paris. We will always have Zack Snyder's Justice League, most definitely. Um, Zack Snyder's Justice League is damn near the savior of DC movies. At least give him a series like Doom Patrol. Yes, unfortunately, Doom Patrol already have his own cyborg. I haven't seen season two. I saw season one. It was okay. I mean, the cyborg is this guy that's kind of pretty short. But hey, I'm not shaming anybody's heights. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, Ray Fisher can't be in Doom Patrol 2. They already have, and just like any other DC property, it's not a shared universe in DC, right? You can have multiple Superman, you can have multiple cyborgs. Um, But yeah, somebody already filled that shoes in the on that show, unfortunately. So, but yeah, again, even though Ray Fisher's not playing um, Cyborg anymore, moving forward, we will always have Zack Snyder's Justice League. Ray Fisher quoted some of excerpts from the article, apparently on his own quote on his own Twitter feed. Mm, let's see here. I appreciate Jeff Johns bringing on a crisis team to try to explain away his discriminatory behavior, but his excuses are weak. If Jeff believed fans expected Superman's grandfather to look like a young Henry Cavill, who was he okay with the Zots not resembling Michael Shannon? Oh, I forgot about that. Yes, that's also one of the paragraphs here. Regarding that series Krypton. Remember, it got canceled. It was on Sci-Fi. It was about Superman's grandfather. Um, Here it is. Uh, Okay, several sources says who spoke to Ray Fisher around this time were willing to talk to Warner's investigator. Blah 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 blah. One of them is writer Nadia Trucker. Nadia Tucker. Tucker tells THR that Jeff Johns objected when a black female character's hairstyle was changed in scenes that took place on different days. I said, black women who tend to change our hair frequently, it's not weird. It's a black thing, says Tucker. And he said, no, it's not. Wow. Jeff Johns spokesperson says, what were standard continuity notes for a scene are being spun in a way that are not only personally offensive to Johns, but to the people who that know who he is. Okay, so Jeff Johns' defense is that regarding the hairstyle, it's a continuity thing. It's not a race thing. But the writer Nadria Tucker says, "Hey, we black women change our hair frequently, day to day. So it shouldn't be a big deal. This whole continuity excuse." That's interesting. Wow. Okay. Wow. 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 Uh, and Jeff Johns says, as for the role of Superman's grandfather, Jeff Johns believed fans expected the character to look like a young Henry Cavill. But to my counter argument is like, again, it doesn't have to be, you know. Um, you can have multiple Superman, you can have multiple Batmans on TV and movies, you know. That's why Robert Pattinson is Batman and Ben Affleck is Batman. I mean, like, it doesn't have to be looking like young Henry Cavill, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Let's see what else Ray Fisher. I think that's it. That's it. Okay, you guys, I am starving. I haven't eaten breakfast yet, and I have my next Zoom interview in an hour. So thank you for tuning in on this live stream of me doing analysis of today's big article on Ray Fisher versus WB and Joss Whedon. What did you think of it? Do you agree or disagree with my assessment? What are your thoughts on this whole revelations? Does this change your perspective when you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer or when you watch The Avengers, for example? The stuff that Joss Whedon did. Does this article now affect the way you see those films or those shows? What do you think? Share your thoughts about this whole thing. And thank you, Having Visions. Thank you so much. In the comment section below. And as always, subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Hashtag I stand with Ray Fisher. Let's rock this.